Thanks, CK. Okay, I think we are good to get started. So we'll kind of do the same thing that we did last time, which is every single person kind of shares their section. So I'll go first and I'll go over the phase 2 launch. So the biggest announcement about it is that we finally launched it. You can go participate in phase 2 today if you go to our website or testnet.ironfish.network, and you can hear more about it. So we made some differences from phase 1. We kind of heard a lot of feedback and critiques about how phase 1 went. And we also kind of compounded that with some of the things that we wanted to see out of our testnet in terms of like actually stress testing Ironfish to make sure that we are ready for mainnet launch. And so some of these categories are a reflection of that. So for phase 2, we have 4 categories. One is hosting a node. So if you turn on telemetry and if you have your registry graffiti set on your node, then you will get 10 points for every 12 hours of you hosting a node. If you host several nodes with the same graffiti, you will only get credit for one of those nodes. And we kind of did that on purpose because logistically it would have been too hard to track, honestly. So that's kind of how that goes. The other category is sending transactions. If you send a transaction to our specified address, if the transaction is higher than 0.1 coins, then you will get 1 point for every such transaction. So we made a command Ironfish deposit to make that a bit simpler. And again, this is so that we can really stress test Ironfish and make sure that it actually does scale. The other category that we have is the same one that we had for phase 1, which is to find bugs. If you find a bug for Ironfish, please list it in the GitHub issues section first. And then there's a Google form that you would need to kind of submit in order to get points for it. And it's 100 points for every one bug that you find. Obviously, we definitely value people finding bugs in the core Ironfish node implementation. And then the last category is open source contributions, or opening up pull requests against our repo. So this one, we actually made a whole separate pool of coins for that category because we want to incentivize this category above all others. Like literally the most lucrative way to get Ironfish coins is to become a core, is to become an open source contributor to the repo. This is because we value open source contributions quite a bit. We want to definitely highlight that and incentivize that. And because this will directly help us get to mainnet faster. We made a Discord channel for that as well. So if you have any questions about how to participate, join the community dev Discord channel. And there you can ask questions about what can I do, help us improve our process for open source contribution, and anything like that. So again, like we heavily encourage you to become an open source contributor and to make Ironfish better, and also to help us get those features completed as soon as possible, so we can get ready for mainnet launch. So that's it in terms of phase 2 launch updates. You can read more on the announcement tweet as well as the blog that we put out. And with that, I'm actually going to give it over to Derek, who's going to talk about some of the stats that we've seen since we launched it on Tuesday for phase 2.
Hey everybody, Derek here. We've seen really pretty awesome turnout from the community for phase 2, so we've been super excited to see that. It's been pretty intense, I think. We've seen up to 7K nodes online at a time. I think we're currently sitting around 5,500 or 5,000. If you're interested, you can check out our telemetry dashboard at stats.ironfish.network. Keep an eye on it yourself. As far as transactions, we had a peak of around 113,000 transactions yesterday, May 12th, which comes out to a little over a transaction per second. So let's see. And since we launched phase 2, we've had around 176,000 transactions. And some of those transactions are pretty large, especially the pool payouts. I think we saw a peak of like a 1.5 megabyte transaction. which in isolation might not sound like that much, but when you have a bunch of big transactions coming through, it adds up to a lot of bandwidth. So we're really impressed with how much transaction throughput we're seeing, especially when we still have a bunch of optimization left to go on actual network bandwidth usage and how efficient our network is about distributing new transactions and new blocks. So yeah, thanks everybody for running a node. It's been really awesome to see our numbers that high in just the testnet phase. Next, I will hand it off to Matt to talk about what's been happening recently.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, so as many of you know, the network is struggling right now, which is actually a good thing. I know it's frustrating right now, but this is exactly why we have the test net to find these sorts of issues. And I'm very happy that we were able to find this issue now rather than, after we have launched on mainnet. So what's happening in versions prior to the one we released yesterday, it was possible for a transaction to expire, but then you would still gossip that out to your peers. And so what was happening is basically an infinite loop of all of these invalid transactions just collecting and collecting more and more. And it finally reached the breaking point yesterday when we started seeing major network congestion and nodes crashing. So yesterday released a version that would no longer gossip these invalid transactions, and it would also do more validation upfront to make sure that it's not sending basically double spend transactions, which were invalid, but they would still get gossiped around and bloat people's mempools and things like that. So we still have more fixes coming. I'm working on, we've got more fixes in the pipeline. I'm hoping to get those out as soon as possible. But yeah, so stay tuned, make sure you're updating. If you have any nodes or miners running on 0132, please upgrade. And stay tuned for the next version update because that will help a lot more. And I'm hoping that it will get things back on track. So yeah, thanks everyone for your patience. I know it's frustrating. But yeah, I'm going to pass it off to Daniel now, who's going to talk about some of the engineering improvements he's working on.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hey, everyone. So like Matt said, we had a lot of network congestion, and one of the things that's been on our roadmap for a while is to improve our gossip protocol. It's pretty basic right now. So me and Derek over the next few weeks will be looking into how other chains like Ethereum specifically do their gossip model and trying to implement a lot of those changes on our network. And hopefully that will also, in the long term, improve congestion a lot. Next, Rohan is going to talk about some work that he's been doing.
Yep, thanks, Daniel. So as many of you have noticed with some of the issues, we've noticed a bug where sometimes when you're sending transactions, the accounts database, the mapping between nodes to nullifiers is getting out of sync. So occasionally you might not find all your decryptable notes, when you're trying to look at your balance or something. So I've been focusing on what's actually causing that, trying to debug that, and hopefully getting that fixed out in the next release. After that, I'm going to be working with Matt to do some research and improvements in our accounts. So this will include confirmation ranges, encryption, passphrases, and then money on forks. And we're going to be focusing on that for the next couple of weeks. Next, I will pass it over to Alex, who will talk a little bit about some of the work he's doing.
Hey, thanks, Rohan. Hey, everybody, Kern here. So with all these transactions being passed around the network, some of the blocks are getting pretty large. And so syncing might take a little longer than it has in the past. So what I'll be working on for the next few weeks is working on syncing snapshots, where we'll basically just take a snapshot of the chain, and then we'll host it somewhere and you can download a snapshot of the chain and just import that into the node instead of having to sync block by block from any peers that you can find in the network. So stay tuned for that in the next couple of weeks. Right now, I'll pass it over to Lawrence, who you guys may not have heard from before.
Hey everyone, I'm Lawrence. I'm new on the team. I joined 2 weeks ago now as Eng manager. So really excited to be working with Ironfish. I don't have to tell you guys, it's incredibly exciting what we're doing here. And I joined because I have a very strong belief that if crypto is going to be used on an everyday basis, there has to be a robust privacy layer. And we are building something that I think will become that. So it's very exciting opportunity. Also, I just wanted to call out one of the things I did when I was looking where to join was checked out this community on Discord, and it's really incredible. So I wanted to call that out as a real source of strength for Ironfish and the project. So you'll see more of me on Discord. Still, getting somewhat up to speed on how everything works here, but we got one release under our belt, which is great, and I look forward to more. And then I think I'm passing back to Elena.
No, you're passing back to me.
Oh, I'm passing up. Okay, there we go.
Thanks, Lawrence. Okay, so I'm just going to give a quick update on two things, actually. The first is the ambassador program, because I know a lot of you have been asking. So quick update there. I just want to say thank you all for showing so much interest. It's really great to see everyone helping each other out and going through what everyone has contributed in the past. So yeah, hopefully we'll have them all done by the end of next week. Addie and I are going through them with a fine-tooth comb, so giving everyone the right amount of time so everyone's treated fairly. There have been a lot of users reaching out with wanting to know if there will be another intake, and yes, there will be another intake, but only after we've completely optimized this first round. So what that does mean is it gives you the opportunity to be active within the community right now. So when we do open up the next round, you'll be able to show your work and be eligible for the program. And we got a lot of exciting ideas in the works for the program, and can't wait to eventually share them with you all. The other thing I wanted to speak about is a new document that we're going to release that will live online, and it's based around the community. So it will be it's called the community doc. Very original. This is a big resource document that will go live after this meeting. So a central place for everything Ironfish community. It will have historical updates that we have retrofitted in the document, resources where you can learn about zero knowledge proofs or privacy in the crypto realm as a whole, and also some very useful guides. So it has the Getting Started guide. This is mostly pulled from the community wiki on GitHub, so shout out to Product Guy for actively creating that one. And it'll also have a bunch of frequently asked questions and troubleshooting items that Lawrence has put together to make things easier if you have any issues in phase 2 or any questions about Ironfish as a whole. So thank you, Lawrence. One other thing it has is a design tab. So I want to shout out Skylar here for our very talented designer. So you can go across and look at all the assets in the channels, pull a few out and use them as you wish. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, also has a few links to some exciting stuff he's working on. So that will be released, and I'll put that in the announcements tab after this. So now I think I'm passing it on to Derek or Elena. Bye.
Yep, that's me.
To Derek.
I just wanted to make sure to thank everybody in the community for their help as part of this testnet. One of the things, the reasons why we incentivize sending transactions is because we wanted to make sure that we tested the accounts area of the code base and tested transactions in general before we went live to mainnet. So it's great to see a bunch of load there. It's great to see some bugs coming out of it too. As much as bugs are bad, it's better to fix them now during testnet than during mainnet. So thanks a bunch for sending bunches of transactions. And also, we really appreciate everybody's issues and PRs, as Elena mentioned earlier. If you're around for testnet phase 1, you probably remember that it took us a fair bit of time to actually get around to awarding points for those. I wouldn't be too surprised if something similar happens too. It's probably going to take us like days or weeks to respond to all the issues and get through them. But we do really appreciate them still, and they're super useful. It's great to hear, I guess, what are some of the most common issues people are having, so we know how to prioritize what we should work on next. And yeah, I think the more things, if you see things and you think it's a bug, just feel free to report it, and then we can just figure out on our side whether it's an issue or not. But really appreciate all the support. It's super awesome. I'll hand back to Elena to close it out.
Cool. Yeah, I just noticed that there were some questions in the monthly pulse by QPC. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So one of his questions was one of our intentions for phase 2 was to make it a bit more fair. And his question is, now people who own powerful servers, even because they don't have the 10 block per week limit, they can have way more. Oh, cool. The nickname says curious. Ooh, that does actually help. Not sure how that is pronounced with a P in there. But anyways, sorry. His question was, now that we don't have the weekly cap limit, then the people with more powerful servers can do many more transactions because, they're mining more. So how did we think about that? So it was kind of a combination of things. So one reason for doing the no weekly cap is we have seen a lot of people do duplicate graffitis to basically get around the weekly cap limit. And again, we are actually required to do KYC before we do any token, distribution. But people were very much concerned in the community that, there are a lot of people that are getting around the weekly cap limit. The other concern that we had is, or at least that I had, is are we artificially disincentivizing 51% attacks with the weekly cap, meaning that, in the real world, obviously miners don't have a weekly cap. And are we artificially kind of changing the ecosystem that we might expect during mainnet launch? So we kind of wanted to see that as well. The other thing that happened in phase 2 that we did not have in phase 1 is we are encouraging people to use mining pools more. So even though you might not have a powerful server, if you join a pool, you're more likely to get paid out something versus nothing. Because in phase 1, we didn't really have pooling infrastructure set up. And so everybody was solo mining. And so it's, you either get the block or you don't, versus, a much more powerful miner. And now that we have mining pools, you are more likely to get at least something than nothing. And that's part of the reason why we made the minimum required value for the transaction to be so fairly low. So for each block that gets mined, the mining reward is 20 coins. And with 0.1 minimum for the transaction, that means that for every block, there are possible 200 transactions that can get awarded points. And so we kind of thought that was a bit more fair to people who would not kind of compete with solo miners or as a solo miner. The other question was, do you plan to revisit reward structure for other categories also? Uptime reward seems a little high to me in comparison to a transaction reward. I'm actually glad somebody asked this because it kind of demonstrates exactly Curious's question. We made the uptime reward, 10 points for every 12 hours, which we thought was fair for people who, again, are hobbyists who may not have such serious machines. And so that's an additional way for them to give more metrics to us, the team, and to make sure that things like gossip work and syncing works and so on, and get points for it. So that was a category that we kind of did to kind of compensate for that. And then, bugs are still 100 points, which we thought was, pretty fair because it's, a lot of points for finding a bug. So that's one category. And then to make it a bit more fair for people who want to do code contributions, we did an entirely new pool that doesn't even compete with miners to get around that problem as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit more clarity about kind of the feedback that we took from the community and kind of what we wanted to see with the testnet, especially this is going to be, our last phase, hopefully, before mainnet. So we wanted to really make sure that we stress test the system, and we thought that incentivizing transactions would really do that. And like we saw from yesterday with the network getting congested, we're already catching really, really good bugs. And surprisingly, like until that happened though, like we were, we reached over a transaction a second, which is pretty awesome. Cool. So I think that kind of concludes our weekly pulse. We'll kind of keep the channel for questions open for a bit further. So if you have more questions, keep them coming. We'll definitely reply to them. And I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. It's like so much for contributing to Ironfish. It's really so incredible to see. Like the stats that we have are really encouraging for the team. The one metric that I like to use is that Bitcoin has roughly 15,000 active full nodes. There's a website you can check, bitnodes.io, that kind of gives you those metrics. And before we had issues in our network, we had almost 7,000 full nodes. That's amazing. We're like roughly half of Bitcoin before the great crash, which is, again, super encouraging for the team because we're directly seeing the impact of our work, which is amazing. And kind of like what Lauren said, I'm like genuinely extremely grateful for how our community is growing. Our community is so healthy. You guys are asking all the right questions. There are people who are asking really good questions about the protocol or about like how to run Ironfish or how to make it better, or giving us really good feature requests. And so like that's pretty incredible to see, like in comparison to some of the other Discord channels that I sometimes spy in. We have like a really, really healthy community, which I'm super grateful for. Cool. And with that, I think we are good to go. If anyone has any last things to say, let me know. Otherwise, I think we might be good to close this out. And also, Sam mentioned that we are going to be having community wiki, and so the notes from this monthly pulse are going to be in there as well. Cool. All right, everyone. Well, enjoy your Friday. Friday the 13th. Oh my gosh, Friday the 13th, especially what's happening with crypto right now, is pretty ominous. Oh yeah, the question is Jason missing action? Jason is taking a well-deserved vacation. So we're doing it without him this time. Cool. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Hopefully people feel okay with the current market state. Crypto is very cyclical. This is okay. Everything will be fine. Cool. And with that, I think we're good to go. Happy Friday, everyone.
Bye.